Check out these big beef hybrid tomatoes, and you can see they have really taken off in the last 3 weeks from when I put them in the ground. Today I'm going to build this trellis over them so that they will have somewhere to grow, and then I can kind of clear out some of the bottom because I'm getting some mushrooms right here and I want the ground to start to dry out a little bit, but there's just not any sun getting to the dirt to dry it out. And one of my problems is I built this trellis and it's just one line right over the middle, and so if I put my tomatoes, they're going to go from the front to the back right up to the top in the middle, and they're going to kind of go together and meet at the top. So I'm going to fix my trellis and put some pieces across the top so it sticks out, and I can have my tomatoes go straight up and down to give them more room. So today we're going to build a trellis for these tomatoes, clean up the bottom of these plants so there's a little bit more room because I have cantaloupe and basil that are also growing here, and then I can make sure I get all the weeds out. So let's get started. I have one beam across my tomatoes, and I'm going to put some beams going just out. It's going to look a little silly, but I need my tomatoes to grow straight up and down and not come together to here. So I have another board that my raised garden bed was in last year, and I'm going to use that wood so I don't have to spend any more money because this was a new garden bed I planted this year. So we're going to recycle that wood to put on top. So right here I'm using cedar that I put in the ground about 4 years ago, and it has lasted really well and worked, so it's been worth the money, except the end of this has gotten rotted off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this part off and use the rest of the board. And remember to be safe, eyeglasses and ear protection. And I do use a face mask for all the cedar oils, especially when I'm in the garage. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come measure my tomatoes from the front to the back. Am I overthinking this? Yes, I am, but I've got time today. So we're going to go from the back to the front where my tomatoes are, because I have one board between the middle, and we're going to make a board 20 inches to be safe. So I'm going to cut a bunch of 20-inch boards. Now we've got 4 boards that I'm going to churn into 8 boards. We can rip them across this table saw. I had to plug my table saw back in. Because I have kids, I always unplug it even if I'm right here with it. So now I know it's plugged in, and when I'm done, I'll unplug it again. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go right down the middle and make 4 boards right here real quick. So here's the plan. I have 9 of these that we're going to put across the top like this, and then the tomato plants can come up to each side on the string that I'm going to put in the ground. So the next thing I need to do is I need to drill a hole into each of these so I can tie my string. I have 2 different drill bits that I'm going to try today. Both of these will make holes through the wood, and this one makes a cleaner cut and this one will just go through. So I'm going to actually test to see which one I like better right now. Max speed, supposedly. All right. Guess I should make sure it's tight. All right, that went right through. Watch, ready, go. So it doesn't like to come back through as nice, but there we go. So I'm just gonna finish these and we'll be right back. All right, so here's my modification. I'm gonna add these boards across the top, just like this. I'm gonna add 2 screws right down the middle. These are stainless steel screws that I'm reusing from the old garden raised bed that I had. So the stainless steel and the cedar, after 3 years, are perfectly fine. So I'm going to reuse them, try to save a little bit more money. Just kind of look down. I'm going to screw it in. Cedar is really soft wood, so it's pretty easy. And I'm going to go all the way down the end right here. And then I'm going to put all 9 of these in. And then the next thing we're going to do is come put the strings in. So let's finish this. And now I'm going to add these little tomato clips that I have. And what you do is you put one end onto the tomato string, and then you clip it around the tomato plant. And you just go all the way up the plant, and it helps these plants grow straight up and down. But as you can see, it has a little clip on the end. You put the string in there, and then you clip it in. All right, now we have all the tomatoes hanging from the trellis. These are intermediate tomatoes, which means they're going to keep vining up to about 6, 7, 8 feet tall. They were taller than me last year. So they really need a trellis so they can fall over, and when the weight of the tomatoes gets on them, they really will fall. So I already have some flowers that are going to make tomatoes. But the next thing I'm going to do now that I have them hung up is I'm going to come through all the plants and take off all of these suckers that grow right in the middle right here. Some people take them off, some don't. I have found that I do like to take them off because it just stops them from being a little bit too much growth, and these are never going to do anything right here anyways. So as you can see, because it's been a while that I've been here, there's a lot of them that I need to come take off. So I'm going to come through and take off all my suckers on my plants, just go through it, and then we'll be right back, and we're going to clean up the bottom and do our next step. So the suckers are the little leaves right here that grow between the branches, and I can just use my fingers and pull them off. All right, now that my suckers are all removed, my next step is I'm gonna come and I'm gonna basically cut off all the leaves that are on the bottom so they're not touching the ground. I have basil that's growing in here and I have cantaloupe that's growing in here, and I want those on the bottom. But also any of these leaves that are on the ground will just get water. When it rains, it'll splash up underneath. They'll never dry. If there's no leaves touching the bottom, I can bring the hose and spray the bottom. But basically I can come through and I'm just going to snip all these leaves that are on very low, and I'm going to be pretty aggressive in cutting these off. So I really just want the stem on the bottom so that nothing is touching the dirt. Plus it's going to clean them up. Then if I need to, I'll come back and I will fix some of these little hooks. But I did find that growing basil with them, I had no bug issues last year for the first time. Look at, as you can see, I'm really going to cut these off so that sun can get to the bottom, dry out this dirt. Mushrooms won't grow down here, but I'm really cutting these, also kind of trimming them up so that they're not touching each other, because I don't really need them to be close. They're gonna grow so big that it's not gonna matter that I have any leaves gone. So my next step is I'm gonna come cut all these back, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. See, this tomato plant right here has 2 whole plants coming from the bottom. So if I can clean this up like this, it really will open it up. And now that I've trimmed up the bottoms of the tomatoes, you can see the ground, you can see everything down here. You can see the basil that's growing, you can see the cantaloupes that are taking off over here, but everything has got nice room for water and sun to get down there and to dry it off, because I really don't want these leaves touching the wet dirt. And now that the basil has room to grow, this will fix itself and it will grow up, and this will be awesome. And right here on this cantaloupe, I already even have a flower. So everything can get sun down here, but it's really important that the bottom of this be open. And there's more basil that I can smell it. And the basil keeps the bugs away in my experience. But now that everything's open down here, it'll grow a lot nicer. And now it's starting to rain, so I've done this just in time. Real quick, I'm going to throw a little bit more of this tomato tone on here now that the leaves are off the bottom. And the nice thing about this is it's slow release, so it's not going to give it too much growth right now. And it'll slowly, over the next month or so, give it some fertilizer and nutrients that it needs, and I won't have to really feed it much more after this. And now we have our tomatoes all hung and ready to grow. Not only are they going to grow more, but they even look better. So we've made it through today. I've got other videos to watch, and I'm always open for suggestions on things I can do better.